Hey guys, I'm Props, and today I'm going to be making a Batman Inspired Mandalorian Helmet, because why not? Actually, this video is in collaboration with Dyalan's Cosplay, so we both decided to make a DC themed Star Wars build, so I made this helmet and he made a Flash themed lightsaber, so definitely go check out his video, it's pretty neat. So the first thing you're going to want is a Mandalorian helmet. I'm using my Boba Fett helmet that I repainted a little bit ago for a custom character for a short film that my friend was working on. Anyways, if you guys want to be able to make that, I have my build video, I'll have that linked in the description. And to modify it, all I did is chopped off the ear details and then trimmed off the cheek parts, because I'm going to make the visor for the Batman helmet a little different than the traditional Boba Fett style face mask. And I just used a pair of scissors to cut all these parts off. Just be sure that if you crack the spackle, to re-glue the seams that you cracked, just to make sure it doesn't crack again. I then went through and traced out my new visor cutout. This one's a little longer and the cheekbones are a little different, so if you want a traditional Boba Fett, just go check out my other video. I have the templates that I used for that on there. And then I just glued a piece of cardboard over that thin piece that I cut out, making sure to glue it on tight. If you see those weird squiggly line things that I'm doing with my hot glue gun, that's just to make sure that the hot glue gets everywhere. I glued on that visor part onto the helmet, just gluing along the areas where they touch. I made sure to measure this part that I used to make sure that it fit on. Then I went through and glued on some cheek parts that I made. This is complete guesswork as far as the cheeks go, and one cheekbone actually turned out right, the other one didn't slope in as much as it was supposed to, so if you're making this helmet, you might want to make sure that your cheekbones match up right. Then I went through and glued together some pieces of cardboard to make the ear details, and I just made a little box on the end of it, and then it just slopes up a lot towards the front to kind of imitate Batman's ear parts that he has on his mask. And I just made these out of that cardboard, and then I covered them up in some thin cardboard, making sure to seal all of the edges with some hot glue to fill in all the gaps and everything. I used a really sharp X-Acto knife to cut off my visor, and I just went through and trimmed off the corners first, and then went through and made the really long cuts, just because I wanted my hands to be as steady as possible and not have to make any sharp corners or anything while doing the straight lines. So definitely use a sharp blade, and you don't have to go through and make all these cuts at once. You can wait a little bit just to make sure you don't mess it up while cutting. I almost messed it up, but I took out my blade and resharpened it on my knife sharpener afterwards, just to make sure it would cut through everything right. After that, I went through and spackled the whole dome, just using some of this lightweight spackling that I found at Walmart, and I used this to fill in all of the gaps and crevices and cracks and all the corrugation lines and just any imperfection in the surface, just to get it as smooth as possible. And then I went through and sanded it with some 80 grit sandpaper. This does leave some pretty rough sand marks and pucks in the surface, but that's fine because the filler primer that I'm applying right now is going to fill all that in and make it all nice and smooth. I did go through and use a base coat of this dark green just to seal everything in, because I didn't have any black stripe paint. And then I went through and painted the whole helmet with some black acrylic paint. Since this is a long video, I'm just going to go through and do my Patreon plug right here. So if you guys don't mind checking out my Patreon and supporting me through there, you guys can get some behind the scenes access, as well as being able to help me make better and better quality videos. Thank you guys for watching that. After I finished painting it, I went through and painted some gray details on the helmet. I just used some really dark gray paint because Batman only works in black and very dark gray. I used some of these fancy brushes my sister got for me, because they spread the paint really good and they don't leave as much brush strokes as the cheaper brushes that I have. I also stenciled on some jag eyes on the forehead of the helmet, just to give it a little bit more of a Mandalorian look, but also to symbolize the ears that Batman has, as well as the eyebrows that are prominent on his actual helmet. I did some dry brushing and glued on some 3D printed details that I never got around to using for a different helmet, and then I went through and cut some silver mirror tint to shape for the helmet. I'm literally not putting this on any plastic or anything. I'm just gluing it straight on because the stuff I bought is pretty thick and I think it should hold up pretty well for a visor. And I just glued this in place using some dabs of hot glue on all of the corners, and to make sure it doesn't warp, just let the hot glue cool down for a minute. I am really pleased with how this helmet turned out. I really like how the visor and all the battle damage and everything looks, and I'm a really big fan of this helmet in general. I think the design's pretty cool. You guys should definitely go check out Dyalan's Cosplay. He makes some really cool props and everything, and he's getting up there, I think almost 300-400 subs, so definitely go check him out. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys don't mind liking and subscribing, please do. Let me know what builds and stuff you guys want me to make, and I'll try and make them. See you guys next vid. Bye.